Hello?
Yeah, now we hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Do I click the link?
You could click on the link to see your points, but if you don't mind just reading the first quote on the page from Mikey since he's not with us yet.
I don't see the quote.
It should be on our shared screen here. Anybody else see it and wants to read it? Okay, Isaiah, do you want to read it?
Sure, I'll read it.
Thank you.
Mikey Kroner. I would keep tradition because tradition is unique and special. Tradition is something that shouldn't be lost. That is very important.
Okay, thank you. So that was a great thought. A lot of you shared that same thought. He was one of the first to add it, but a lot of you said that thought about tradition being important and different traditions from all the different groups we were learning about, all being important things to keep, and that was an excellent point. Zach W., do you want to read your quote?
Yeah, I'll read it. I think I would keep the tradition of the Miznagdim because I feel that studying the Torah is important, but I would also keep the traditions of the Reform movement because being happy, having fun, and not being so serious all the time is also important.
Okay, great. So I'm glad that you took away good lessons from the different groups that we learned about. Anybody who was here last week that did the Reform movement and want to make a small correction to what Zach said about the Reform movement? Anybody last week who did the Reform movement? Anybody remember if that's what they learned about? Oh, Mikey, you're back. We just read your quote. Welcome. Okay, so the Reform movement, while it did stress not being as serious, you're correct. The one that focused more on the happy side of Judaism was the Chassidut movement. So I think we might have been taking from a few places, a few different groups there, but that's good. It sounds like you took a lot of good lessons from a lot of different groups there, and that's a great thing to be able to learn from everybody. Okay, so for this week's Israel moment, instead of actually doing something specific to Israel, we're going to be able to do that Kahoot game that we did not have time for at the end of last week's class. So I hope everybody knows how to do a Kahoot. Go to kahoot.it. I just put that link in the chat. And soon we're going to get a code for you. So you'll put that in, and then you will be able to add your name and join the game. So we should just go to the Kahoot link up here at the top.
Did you put the link in?
If you click the blue underline where it says Kahoot, that'll be it. Not working?
I click on it also. Yeah.
Put the link
I think
on the
I
chat.
need the game pin.
Yeah, what's the game pin?
Yeah, we're getting it in just a second. Sorry about that.
Oh.
I'm going to send it to you. Sorry. Did you get it to start? Yeah, okay. Fantastic. Hi, Ryan. Welcome.
What's the game pin?
So once we click play here, yeah, let's click play. Thanks, Sam. And then we'll get the game pin. For anybody just joining us, we're about to do a Kahoot game. We're going to review our Yiddish. So we're picking up exactly where we left off last week with the Jews in Europe before the times of the Shoah. Yiddish was a language that many of them spoke at the time. Team, unfortunately, Sam, doesn't work so well when people are all in different locations. We've tried that before. I'm sorry. So just click classic and then we'll get the code. So Leah and everyone else who, if you haven't done it yet, just go to kahoot.it. I put it again in the chat. And then this code is what you're going to want to put in, 3843024. Type your name in. sorry, the music can't be muted. I know it's a little annoying. So those of you with the more colorful nicknames, just make sure we know who you are.
So we're missing 3 players still. Right? Oh, we lost one. Okay. Could everyone sign on to the Kahoot? Should we go ahead, Tony?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Great job, everybody. You've all heard
good.
oy vey enough times in your life. Excellent. Whoever
Whoa.
is Chloe the cat, let us know.
That's me,
Who's me?
Sammy.
Okay.
Good job.
That was a little harder. It's a little harder.
Even though it actually does mean wild animals, someone may have heard it being used like as crazy child, because that's what they
true.
call a kid who's
That is true.
acting.
You're right. We should make that a second correct answer. All right, welcome back, Ethan. Who knows what Kinder is?
Think kindergarten.
Exactly. Good job, guys. Let's see who's in the lead. Dylan now. Great job. A little harder. Good. And we got 5 people who got that right. And now Alex in the lead. Good job, guys. Everybody keeps taking over. Who knows this one? All right, Alex still in the lead. All right, back to
Who's
Chloe
back?
the cat. Yes. All right, last question. Excellent job, guys. All right, let's see what the rankings are. Chloe, Zoe, and Aaron. All right, we had a lot of people take turns in the lead there, so that means everybody did a very good job.
Congratulations, Sammy. Who's Zoe?
Who said that they were Zoe? Let's see.
Sammy took my nickname.
Oh.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay, so Sammy is Zoe. Excellent. And we've got Aaron. Okay, good. So thank you guys, all of you, for participating in that. Now we're going to move to a slightly less fun topic, the rise of the Nazis. So remembering where we were leaving off last week and what that game left us off at, the Jews at this point were a big, vibrant community, many different types of groups, like we learned about living in Europe. And as that's happening, there's a lot going on in Europe, specifically in Germany, and we'll watch the short video to hear the beginning of the story of how the Nazis rose to power.
In September 1919, a former amateur artist and army veteran named Adolf Hitler joined the ranks of the German Workers' Party, later known as the Nazis. It was a decision that would have a profound impact not only on Germany, but the entire world. The atrocities committed by the Nazis at the height of their power are staples of every lesson on World War II. But just how did a democracy like Germany fall under the sway of a tyrant in the first place? It all goes back to Germany's loss to the Allies in World War I. German leaders were forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, agreeing to shrink its armed forces, give up land, and pay large sums of money in reparations, weakening its already unstable economy. Many Germans felt humiliated and betrayed by their leadership, and there was growing fear that their nation would be stuck in poverty and decline. In this climate of bitterness, Hitler rose to prominence. A gifted public speaker, he captured the people's disillusionment with a series of speeches calling for a stronger, unified Germany. He insisted that one group was to blame for the nation's post-war misfortunes: the Jews. Hitler and his followers attempted a government coup in 1923, but the plan failed. Hitler was jailed for treason for 9 months, but the publicity from the failed coup made him more popular than ever. Then, in 1929, the Great Depression hit, destroying the German economy overnight and leaving millions unemployed. Hitler saw the ensuing chaos as his opportunity to seize power. He loudly criticized the ruling government and promised to return Germany to greatness. Long-suffering Germans believed they had finally found their savior. In Germany's 1932 elections, the Nazis won a majority of seats in parliament, and Hitler ran for president. Though he lost, his soaring popularity inspired President Paul von Hindenburg to appoint him chancellor, the head of the German government. As chancellor, Hitler wasted no time tightening his grip on every aspect of German life. He tripled the size of the military, violating the Treaty of Versailles. Under Hitler's orders, rival parties were banned, while paramilitary groups cracked down on protests and executed political opponents. Anti-Semitic laws prohibited Jews from working, voting, and occupying public spaces. A propaganda department produced art, films, and books praising Hitler and embracing his vision of a better Germany. After the death of President von Hindenburg in 1934, Hitler declared himself Führer, an absolute dictator. With Germany under his total control, Hitler would shift his focus to global domination, setting the stage for World War II.
There's not sufficient evidence.
Okay, so we saw the story there of how this came to be. I know it's a lot of information in a short video. I know Sam just said he learns about this in school. Some of this you might have already known from before, but we're going to explore this more in a Padlet. I'm putting the link right now in a chat. So the Padlet that you're going to look at is giving you more information about what the Nazi Party was, how they rose to a position of power, what they believed in, and what they did. So does everybody see that link? Everybody in the Padlet? Okay, if anyone's having trouble, let me know. So the instructions are in the instructions column. I want you to read at least 3 out of the 4, and then answer the questions. Just click the plus sign at the bottom of the column and answer the questions. And please remember to add your name to your post so we know who wrote the answers. Okay, good. I see people starting to respond. Most of you have remembered to add your names, but anybody who hasn't, I see a couple posts without names. Please make sure to go back and add those. Thank you. Alec, I see you wrote they didn't respect or want the Jewish religion to exist. Why do you think that was? Yep, Ethan, no problem. Aaron, that's a great point. As a lot of you are commenting, they rose to power because of the financial situation. But as Aaron points out, a special nuance there is that people were really suffering from the Great Depression, and having faith in Hitler and finally having something to believe in is what made him become so powerful so quickly. Zach points out they used propaganda and persuasion, absolutely. That was a big way that they were able to make that happen also, for sure. Good, as Alec and Aaron are pointing out also, not only did they think the Jews were the source of the problem, they viewed them as a different type of human, a subspecies, as Alec says, or maybe not even human at all, depending on some of the Nazi propaganda. And that's what made them start to think of them very, very differently. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute. Okay, let's give everyone one more minute to finish up here. Alec, it seems like you've studied this before. You have a lot of facts about this. That's great. That's right, Benjay. They really believed that Hitler would help them in World War II because World War I was so devastating for them. So correct, they really believed that they needed his help. Okay, so I think most of you had a chance to answer. Since we still have more to get through, we're going to move on. Thank you guys for responding to that. There was a lot of information there, but hopefully now we have an understanding of, between the video and what we saw here, the Nazi Party was a political party that rose to power in Germany, headed by Adolf Hitler, came to power largely because of the situation that was going on. People believed him, trusted in him, as we said. So we're going to look now at a few images of some classic Nazi symbols that you maybe have seen in a history book, or maybe in a movie, or maybe anywhere else. Can anyone tell me what they see here, what they recognize? What's that shape all the way to the left called? Anybody know?
The swastika?
That's great. And what is, that was on their flag and a lot of their materials. Alec also got that good. And who knows what is going on in the picture on the right side? Everybody with their arms out.
Hitler.
That's right, they're saluting to Hitler. That is correct. Excellent. And the picture in the middle is the Nuremberg laws, which we touched on just now in the Padlet. We'll talk about more in a couple minutes. These were the laws that restricted what Jews could do. And that was another important thing at the beginning of the Nazi rise to power. So in the next slide, we're going to look at a few caricatures. And again, I want you to tell me what you see here. These are all, as we spoke about, propaganda that was used against the Jews. These are pieces of propaganda used against the Jews. Tell me what symbols you see that represent Jews. How is the Jew depicted here? Who can tell what's going on in this one with the spider? Who's the spider? Jews were caught in, oh, go ahead, yeah.
A Jew?
That is a Jew, exactly. They were caught in a web with no way to get out. Oh, that's a good way to look at it. Or the propaganda side of it is they're trying to trap people in their web. Also, what is significant to notice about this Jewish man's face? Something that classic is a stereotype of Jewish people. Does anybody notice it? Big nose is right, Ethan, exactly. Okay, now let's look at the other two images. What else can you point out here? You see anything else that looks like it might be making the Jews look bad?
The one up and to the left,
Mm-hmm.
Die Banken, the Jews controlled the bank in a lot of Jews were bankers in Germany at that time, and they're depicting Jews as old and fat and greedy because
Mm-hmm.
they're stealing the cake from
Right.
Das Volk.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. And as we saw there, the finances were a big issue that they tried to use in this propaganda. That's a great point. And who can tell what's going on in the bottom photo? Who do you think the people off to the side are that are looking at this nice young man walking by? Notice something about their noses, like we noticed also in the spider picture. Who do you think those are? Those are the Jews, that's right, Zach. And again, they are not drawn in a very flattering way. That's right, Ben, excellent. And when do you think that all of these pictures are from? Anybody have a guess? The 1930s. That's a good guess, Alec. Anyone else have a guess? 40s, says Zach. Okay. Pre-war Germany, World War II, mid to late 30s. These 1929 to 1945. Okay, good. We're getting a lot of answers in the same time period, roughly. And it would make sense to say that, but these were actually from the 1800s. This is how long it has been portrayed that Jews are these greedy, money-hungry, trap you in the web, big-nosed people, the way that they're shown here. That is how old these caricatures are. So when Hitler was trying to spread this propaganda, he wasn't inventing a new idea that nobody had heard of. These ideas of the way that people saw the Jewish people in the world had already been around for so long. So it was very easy to jump on this concept and take it much further. Wow is right, Isaiah. Absolutely. So let's look at the next picture. And based on what we've learned, look at all these different images. We see Germany punished, economic depression. Look at all these different images. Can anybody want to volunteer and tell me a step-by-step based on these pictures? How did the Nazis come to power?
Going from left to right, from the top, and then on the bottom.
Right. Any volunteers, or should I pick someone?
I'll go.
Thanks.
So starting in the top left, it's all of the land that Germany had before World War I, and then after World War I, they lost some land to France and a bunch of land to Poland, and I think a bit of land to Belgium, I think, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then the economic depression hit, and then they're blaming it on the Jews, and then Hitler rises to power and scapegoats the Jews, and then
Correct.
Hitler starts to help build things and get Germany back on its feet.
That's right. Exactly. And then that leads to the death camps and all of that. Exactly. Excellent. Thank you so much. So with that idea in mind, with that history of how this came to be, we see that in a very short time, Hitler was able to convince an entire people that Jews were the people that we should be scapegoating. These were the people that were the cause of all the problems, and therefore it was not that difficult to pass laws such as the Nuremberg laws, which when you'll read more about them, you might be shocked by some of the content. We already hinted at some of it in the Padlet. It feels very extreme for what should have been a free society, and the Jews up until then were normal German citizens like anyone else. But with these ideas in place, you will see that that is how they get there pretty quickly. So this is a thing link. I'm going to put the link in the chat. So what I want you to do is, you see this image. First of all, who can identify for me what this image in the background is? This yellow star. Anybody recognize it?
It's like a patch that they put on all the Jewish people.
Exactly, and they had to wear it on all their clothes to identify themselves as Jewish. Thank you. So look at each of the points of this star, and if you scroll your mouse over, you'll see that there's like a little bullet point that shows up there. Good job, Sammy and Ben. You have the same answers. Great. And then once you scroll over, you'll see there's a little text box that drops down. So make sure to hit all the points of the star. And there's a video on one of them to read all about the Nuremberg laws. Then in the middle of the star are some questions. We'll also put those questions up on the next slide. So I want you to answer those questions in the chat box when you have finished reading. Okay, good. Alex already starting to answer. As soon as you finish, just add your answers into the chat. Yeah, put your answer in the chat if you don't mind. If we go to the next slide, then we have the questions on there also, actually. So Ben brings up a great point. Everybody has great answers so far. I just want to highlight a point that Ben's making, that even people who didn't consider themselves as Jewish still were counted as Jews by the ruling of the Nuremberg laws, which was based on grandparents, not parents, as many people would consider themselves. A lot of you are correctly pointing out that this impacted their lives because now they can't go about their daily lives anymore. They can't keep their jobs. They can't be going to public places. And people did try to continue on as normal in some circumstances, but that was not always possible because of these laws. So it definitely did have a big, big effect on them. Let's give everyone one last minute to finish up. Anyone who has not answered yet? Okay, as both our Zachs are pointing out, they wanted to make the Jews look like terrible people and embarrass them, and that was to some extent what the star was for also. It was not to distinguish them positively the way that we might wear a Jewish star necklace. Today, it was to distinguish them negatively, that these are the people that need to stick to these laws, these very life-restricting laws, absolutely. And making them feel inferior, absolutely. Okay, so excellent answers, everybody. We are going to watch now a video about the night of Kristallnacht, which might be something you've heard of before, translated as the night of broken glass. Mike, you can still keep typing your answers. Sorry if you haven't had a chance to finish. And anybody who's still working, you can still keep typing your answers as the video is going on. So this Kristallnacht was a significant night. It wasn't the only night like it, but it stood out, as you'll see, because this was one of the biggest attempts at the beginning of truly making a big show of Jews not being able to carry on with their lives as they had been, as many of you pointed out, because their businesses and their incomes no longer were their own. So we're going to watch this video and talk about Kristallnacht.
And notice the date that.
Yes.
The real significance of Kristallnacht was that it marked a huge escalation of Nazi anti-Semitism. 900 synagogues were desecrated or set on fire. 91 Jews were killed that night, and 30,000 Jewish men, a quarter of all of the Jewish men in Germany, were taken to concentration camps. Not only were businesses destroyed that night, but the Jewish community and life as Jews had known it was also destroyed.
You're traumatized. You're traumatized. You cannot understand what's going on. Here you have a loving family and it's being torn apart. I crawled into this stack of tires and sat there for 3 days and no food, water, or anything. And all you looked for was to live the next minute, the next hour, the next day, and do another day, and just continue on that way. When you think about that, you do not sleep. Or if you do sleep, you sleep very light.
I was 6 years old on Kristallnacht, and I was going to kindergarten that day, and all of a sudden we heard this banging on the door, and Nazis broke in the door with their boots. And the thing I remember the most are the boots, you know. When I see somebody in boots, black boots, it comes back to me, you know, because they kicked the door down with those black boots.
When we started searching for an exhibit specifically on Kristallnacht, we were actually unable to find one. So we decided to create our own. We decided to invite artists from around our community, and in fact around the country, to contribute pieces of their work that spoke to the specific themes of Kristallnacht.
My main focus for this piece was I wanted to capture the emotion behind if you were to imagine just a horde of angry people coming into your house and just annihilating everything in your life. I wanted to create something that was beautiful, a little bit somber, but not so life-draining that you didn't want to look at it. I want people to look at this. I want people to stare at it longer, take in the symbols, take in the meaning, get emotionally attached to it at first, and then go a little closer and read into it, incorporating their own lives into it, and remembering that, you know, we don't want this to ever happen again.
Okay, so that was telling a bit of an overview of what happened on Kristallnacht and why it was so important. I mean, some of that artwork that we saw helped us to people trying nowadays in today's world to understand, get in the mindset of what it felt like then. Did you guys find that art impactful? Did it help you to think about what happened at that time? Did any of the paintings or other things stand out to you?
The one that the artist was talking about, because it had like the Germans like breaking down the door on one side of the guy's body, and all of his belongings flying out the other.
Right, right. That was very impactful. Ben found interesting. Sammy found it sad. Yeah, absolutely true. Very, very true. So let's look at a few facts about Kristallnacht. Anybody want to read this slide for us? Volunteers?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
267 synagogues burned down or destroyed. 7,500 Jewish-owned stores destroyed. 30,000 Jewish males, most of them young and healthy, thrown into concentration camps. And 91 Jews killed.
Okay, thank you. So this was, as they said in the video, the first real event where people started realizing this is bad and it's getting worse. You see just from the statistics here, they, until this point, had been living more or less normal lives still, and this is really where everything changed at Kristallnacht. So we are going to, yes, all in one night, absolutely. We're going to look at a timeline to review some of the events that we learned about today, since we covered a lot of history today. What we're going to do here is everybody is going to get a slide. Look for the slide in the slideshow here with your name on it. The link is in the chat. Don't show the answer key yet, thanks. And so everybody has at the bottom the little boxes. You see Germany invades Poland, Nuremberg laws introduced. So just click with your mouse and drag those boxes up to the place on the timeline where you think it's the correct date for that event. So everybody go onto your own slide, drag your box around until you think that you have it, you're set. And once you think you're good, write done in the chat. Looks like everybody's working hard. Good job. Got a few done. So let's give everyone else one more minute. Okay, anybody still working on it? All right, let's look at the answers. Everybody look at your slide, see if you got it right. We're gonna look at the answer key now. Okay, try to compare, see if you got this right. Mein Kampf came first, then Hitler became Chancellor of Germany in 1933. 1935, we have Kristallnacht. 1938, the Nuremberg Laws. 1939, Germany invades Poland and World War II begins. Who got everything right? Anybody? Oh yeah, Ethan, good job. Anyone else? All right, well, good work, everybody. Putting all of we did today into practice, all of that history. So just to finish up, we see that we are leaving the Jews here in a very precarious situation of the Nuremberg laws having been introduced. Kristallnacht happened. And what happens next? Who can tell me? What's the next steps? Things getting better or worse for the Jews from here?
Worse.
That's right. The concentration camps, what we largely refer to as the Holocaust, Ben, correct? Much, much worse is absolutely true. While there were still people clinging to the hope that it would get better, that unfortunately was not the case. Germany invaded Poland, the concentration camps, and all of that. It falls under the category of the final solution, which we'll be talking about in our next class. So we'll be getting more into that next week. In the meantime, I want you to just take a look at your independent exercise for our next class. This is a diary entry. So this is, again, a Google slideshow that everybody can edit. Everybody has their own slide. So again, please find the slide with your name on it and edit only that. What I want you to do, the link's in the chat, I want you to write a diary entry as though you were living a day in the life of somebody in Germany, 1930s. You were a Jew, your same age. What would you be feeling? So you see the instructions are on the first slide. Make sure to reference one of these events that we spoke about today in class, and you can choose some of the options here, trying to leave, trying to stay, or trying to pretend to be German. You can pick some of those choices to help you, and then you can see on slide 2 a student sample. This is from Alexis, who's a student last year, if any of you know her. And you can create your own diary entry in the voice of somebody who was living through this at the time. This is the homework, that's correct. Any questions? Someone in the concentration camps, if you want to, Ben. We're talking more right now from the period of what we were speaking about as things are starting to kind of crash down. Kristallnacht, the Nuremberg laws, etc.
You may want to hold off on that since we're going to be learning about that next week. So do that leading up through Kristallnacht.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So I believe we do not have class next week. Is that correct? Could be.
I think that's correct. In which case we have 2 weeks to do the
2 weeks to work on this. So I really want to see everybody do this and do an excellent job. I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody does here. You have a chance to be very creative with it. So looking forward to seeing you then, and have a great rest of your week. Thanks for coming.
Good night, everyone. See you on Wednesday.
Bye.
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 Good night.